Welcome. Thank you for joining us to learn more about serving as an intern for the summer 2023, supported by the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Today, we're going to go through the program structure, the details, benefits, how to apply, everything in the nitty-gritty. And as I always say, please reach out to us via email if you find you have follow-up questions. In general overview, this program provides guided learning experiences consisting of hands-on training, mentoring, attendance at educational events, and cultivation of context for the next generation of researchers, scholars, curators, and other museum, library, preservation, and heritage professionals. Individuals from underrepresented groups are strongly encouraged to apply. Our program is a cohesive program, but it is at 10 different locations around the country. That includes us here in Washington, D.C. We have opportunities in the Midwest, the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, as well as the South. And I'll go through those specific positions a little bit later. We have positions termed off-site positions. Those are any of the positions that are not located at the National Museum of African American History and Culture in DC. The DC positions are called on-site positions. Each applicant can apply for up to 3 off-site positions as well as 1 on-site position. There is no way to prioritize those positions, and you use the same materials for all 3 off-site positions. So you do need to find a way to stay focused, even though you have limited materials to share. And I'll go into that a little bit more later as well. Very important, the application deadline is February 15th. That is not flexible. So everything needs to be in by that time or your application will not be considered. I've put up here our website address. Of course, you already have it because you were able to register or view this webinar, but it never hurts to put it back up again. Our program is open to undergraduate students who have completed at least 1 year. That means if you're enrolled in your first year now, you are eligible to participate in this upcoming season. So you can apply for this summer's internship. Graduate students at any level, recent graduates, so that's up to 2 years post-graduation, either from undergrad or graduate school, as well as career changers. We define career changers as individuals who've been working in the cultural sector for less than 2 years. These are strict eligibility. We got several questions about high school eligibility, and high school students at this time are not eligible for the program. For international students, some of our positions, actually most of our positions, can accept international students with existing sponsorship. Some of our positions require U.S. citizenship. Those that are open to sponsored international students are the Atlanta University Center, Fisk University, Museum of the Grand Prairie, NAB Research Center, Tuskegee University, and Whitney Plantation. The National Museum of African American History and Culture is the only organization that has the ability to sponsor visas. All of our programs, all of the internships, regardless of location, are 12 weeks long. That length is not flexible and they are full-time. This year, they're going to be fully in person, so you will need to be near the site for each internship. Although the term is strict for the 12 full weeks, we do have some flexibility with when the internships start and end. So that's always a conversation to have with the supervisor. If you're offered or if you're invited to an interview, you can talk about dates, especially if you have particular restrictions, like you might be studying abroad and won't be back until June. You can talk about a different start date. Let's say the position says a start in May. Not all sites will have a significant amount of flexibility, but it's a conversation that you can have. Each position is paid $850 per week for the stipend. If you're familiar with this program, if you've watched this before, kept an eye, or applied before, this is a different structure than we've had in the past. So we have increased the stipend and we've also combined it. So now it's 1 stipend level for everybody, regardless of situation. We no longer separate the housing and transportation on a need-based basis. So it simplifies the process a little bit. Housing arrangements are the responsibility of the intern. So the stipend is intended and should cover the cost of housing arrangements, but we don't coordinate them for you. There are a couple exceptions to that. The NAB Research Center in Salisbury, Maryland can provide on-campus housing, and Fisk University has on-campus housing, but the payment for that would come out of the stipend. All of these information, like especially for citizenship, housing arrangements, transportation, is detailed in each individual position description. So please read those very clearly and very carefully. Some things that we don't consider when offering this internship and making selections: age, race, academic major, GPA, although I will say anything less than a 3.0 probably warrants a conversation or a few sentences, no more, in a cover letter explaining why. So something like, I had a really rough semester, or I had to go home, or I thought I was going to be a chemistry major, it didn't work out, but you don't have to dwell on it. Really, we're going to be looking at growth and interest in relevant topics. Similarly, you do not have to be majoring in history or museum studies or Africana studies. We're looking at the whole story of coursework. So much stuff is really relevant to all of our positions, very interdisciplinary. So don't let that stop you from applying, and know that it's not a factor in selection. We can offer and support academic credit. It's up to the intern to facilitate that paperwork, get things to us on time, but we will work with the interns to support that if needed, if desired. All of these details and eligibility requirements are strict, but if you have more nuanced questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And the final piece here is that if you have had a Smithsonian internship at any of our museums in the past or research institutes, you are not eligible for the Robert F. Smith program. I want to take a minute to talk about who our ideal candidate is. We don't want anybody to waste time, but we also want to build up some confidence for those of you that may not think this is a fit. So we aim to fill significant gaps in the intern's professional background. One way that we do this is by focusing on individuals with limited professional experience. Our ideal candidate will have these attributes. Number one, you must be able to demonstrate an interest in African American history and culture. It can come through in coursework, it often does. It can come through in major, but it can also come through in extracurricular activities, volunteering, student groups, other positions you may have had, or if you've had a way to communicate to us what that past interest has looked like for you. We're looking for passionate, mature, curious, driven applicants who are ready to make the most of this experience, will really maximize the opportunity, but lack experience thus so far. This is the reason that you'll notice our qualifications and prerequisite sections of each position description are quite broad. Some of the things that you might see, though, are introductory experience with, so we're really not looking for expertise. Some of the things we do allow are writing experience and research experience, because those are things that can be learned and practiced in the classroom. But for the most part, we focus on individuals who have no more than 1 to 2 past relevant work experiences. If you have more experience than this and you're interested in applying, what you need to answer for us is, what's holding you back? I have a lot of experience, but what could this internship give you that you need and don't already have? You could be saying, I'm applying for jobs and I'm not getting interviews, or I see positions I want and they all require knowledge of TMS. I see that this position is going to offer experience with that software. I think this could be or would be a critical step or learning outcome for me. We really want to support significant growth and movement to becoming a competitive applicant if you decide to move forward in the career. And I already mentioned prior Smithsonian interns are not eligible. I will say Also, that if you're concerned about your experience level, you think you might have too much, you can email us. I will take looks, and Tiffany will take a look at resumes and say, yeah, you have a lot of experience. If you want to apply still, these are some things you want to answer, or you don't have to worry about it. We can put your mind at ease. And there have been a few times where we've really said, you're not a good fit for the program. You may want to look elsewhere. And sometimes we are able to give suggestions as well. We have 14 positions this year. It's our largest summer yet. I'm going to read these out, and just in case you're on a very small screen today. For 2023, we have a position in digital collection stewardship at the Amistad Research Center in New Orleans, an archives opportunity at the Apollo Theater Archives, digitization position at the Atlanta University Center Robert W. Woodruff Library in Atlanta, digital curation position at Chicago History Museum in Chicago. We have 2 identical openings in digital history at the NAB Research Center in Salisbury, Maryland. 2 identical oral history positions at Fisk University Library in Nashville. 1 oral history position at the Museum of the Grand Prairie in Mahoma, Illinois. 2 identical digitization positions at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, as well as 1 time-based media conservation position at our museum in DC. An archives position at Tuskegee University Archives, and then an education podcast position, as well as a digital education position at the Whitney Plantation in Edgard, Louisiana. You'll notice that the Whitney Plantation and Museum of the Grand Prairie are located in more rural sites. We do have some limited additional support if needed for transportation in those locations. We know that travel and housing can be a little bit trickier when looking at those sites, and we want to support you. This is all the information that we have. So you'll see each individual position description. We make it as detailed as we can, but we don't know the ins and outs of every part of every position. So if you have very specific questions about day-to-day tasks or scheduling, these are good topics to cover with the supervisor if you're invited for an interview. So jot those down now, things you might be interested or more curious in specifically, and that's the time to ask those. Unfortunately, we're not able to answer those ahead of time. I want to talk now about application requirements and go into somewhat detail about how to apply, what this looks like. It's a little bit complicated. I understand that. That's another reason why you can reach out to us at any time. We will help you. We want to make this accessible, even though it can be tricky. The deadline for both formats, the online on-site positions as well as the off-site, is February 15th, 2023. Again, no flexibility with that. You do, if you want to apply for off-site positions as well as one of the positions at our museum, you absolutely can do that, but you have to apply twice using these 2 different methods. If you don't want to apply to both, you don't have to apply to both. It's really up to you. But there's a maximum of 4 positions that you can request to be considered for. The documents that are required for each position are the same. So we're looking for a cover letter that's a maximum of 2 pages, a resume, a statement of interest in African American history and culture at a maximum of 250 words. This is a new addition to the documents this year. Again, in case you've looked at this program in the past, we look for academic transcripts, unofficial are fine, and 2 letters of recommendation. On-site can be done confidentially, but the off-site positions must have letters of recommendation uploaded by the applicant. So that's a really important thing to know and to share with the references. On-site positions you apply through the Smithsonian Online Academic Appointment System, and then there's an online form for the off-site positions. You can use the same resume, the same statement, the same transcript, same letters of recommendation for both if you want. So let's say you want to apply on-site and off-site, you don't have to get 4 different letters of recommendation. For the off-site, it's an online form that you fill out with some basic information, and then you upload all of the necessary documents. into the system as Word or PDF documents. So Google Doc or cloud system files will not be accepted. If you have issues with references or attachments, please contact us in advance. We'll work with you as long as you give us time to work with you. Those types of questions at the last minute, if we're not able to get back to you, do not excuse a late submission. It still would not be considered. So now I want to do some screenshots to really show you what it looks like each on-site and off-site. So we'll start with the on-site because it's probably the most complicated. Using SOLA, the address here is there. It's also linked on our website. It's also very Googleable if you need to. What you need to do is create a login and account. If you've ever applied to a Smithsonian position in the past, you will already have an account. And if you don't remember what that is, you'll have to go through the forgot password or username cycle. We all know how to do that at this point. But after you create that account, you go to start your application. That's actually how you search for the program and secure the program. You can find us on SOLA by searching Robert Frederick Smith, Robert F. You could type Smith, although that brings up more. If you put the program status as currently active, it will significantly reduce the number of your results. Know that there are thousands of internships listed in this system. So you do have to be very detail oriented, very careful as you select which program you're looking to apply for. Special instructions are your friend because there are so many positions open and in the past available through SOLA. It can get very confusing. There are other internships offered by the National Museum of African American History and Culture that are not associated with the Robert Frederick Smith internship program. At the moment, those positions are not open, but they will be open and have the same deadline. So make sure you're applying to the program you intend to. And a quick note here, if you want to apply to the Smith Center program as well as the general NMOC pool, you absolutely can. But in our special instructions, you should see things you recognize: the stipend of $850 per week, the fact that you must select a position of interest. You will be allowed to move forward in the system without selecting that position, but your application won't be considered. So you must let us know, do you want to be considered for digitization or time-based media conservation? Before I get to letters of recommendation, a good thing to know about SOLA is that you should not formally submit your application materials until all of your pieces are ready, which is everything except the letters of recommendation. You cannot make edits to your materials after you submit. So you really want to make sure you've got your transcripts, you've got your cover letter, your statement as a separate document, and make sure everything is that's in your control before you submit. You can submit all of your materials before your letters of recommendation have been uploaded. And you can also send your requests for the reference letters before you've submitted your application. Those references will not be able to see your documents that are in progress. And a nice part about SOLA is you can save and return to the system to continue your work. You don't have to do it all in one go. Applications will not be processed if your letters of recommendation are not submitted. So if you receive your letters as on a non-confidential basis, let's say you're also submitting for offsite, you happen to have the letters, you can upload them as letters of recommendation yourself, and then you know you're secure, you've got them in. But if you choose to have the references submit their own letters confidentially through the system, make sure you're logging back into SOLA periodically to ensure they have been uploaded. You will be able to see if they are in the system or not. If they're not in the system, let's say the week before the deadline or as they're coming up, it's your responsibility to make sure that they get in the system. So if they're not there, follow up with your reference, remind them of the deadline, and make sure that they get submitted, because if we don't receive them in time, the application will not be considered. It will not be sent to supervisors. To enter reference information, once you get to the references tab, and again, this is something you could skip to and do first if you want, you enter in the You add new reference details. You enter in the name and the email. You don't need to do all of the additional information. It's not really used, so you don't have to take that time. Once you've saved it, you click the envelope icon to send the email for each referee. Remember, you have to send that email twice. You have to click that and go through that process for each individual referee. Make sure you're letting your reference know that to expect that email before you send it, because otherwise it's very likely to get deleted and go into spam. Looking at off-site applications, there is an online form. This QR code on the screen will take you directly to the form, but also on our website, you can go and expand the off-site internships tab, and then the subheading of apply is a link that will take you to this form. The pieces that you enter individually are quite simple. This cannot be saved and returned to in the past. You do have to have kind of everything ready as you get started. You answer these basic questions like, who are you? How are you eligible? And then you select up to 3 positions of interest. You don't have to select 3. You can do 1 or 2. It's up to you, but no more than 3. And then you see all the required documents. You upload all of the documents in one submission. Again, PDF or Word files. Label each document with your full name and then underscore the document type. So that'd be Jane Smith underscore cover letter and then Jane Smith underscore transcript. That makes it really clear we're not going to lose your documents. We can check and make sure everything's complete before we process it. You must have your letters of recommendation to upload. You cannot edit the submission after you submit. If you have issues, if your references have issues with you having the letters themselves, let us know well in advance. Get that information early. Again, we want this to be doable for everybody. We don't want this process to be the reason you don't get through. We want to be able to evaluate you on your actual merits, on your ability to complete the internship and experience success. So if you're encountering troubles or finding roadblocks, you have to let us know early, and we will do everything we can to help you. In this process, you will also get a prompt to commit to attending the 2 mandatory online orientations. Both of these take place before the internship start. They're scheduled on April 29th and May 6th. If you cannot commit, if you say that you cannot attend those, you must provide a reason. So that's not an automatic exclusion. Your application will be processed regardless of your answer to that question, but it is important that we know. Applications submitted for off-site will be acknowledged by email within 3 business days. If you don't receive that confirmation email and it's been 4 business days, do reach out to us. That probably means either something's been lost or your application was incomplete or something was blank. So it's totally fine if you reach out to us once that timeline has passed. As you get closer to the deadline, we extend that response time to 4 days. So you will hear me many times encourage you to start early in this process to give yourself time to encounter issues as you move through. We don't send those acknowledgement emails for SOLA because for SOLA, you can log in to the system and see the status. You can check yourself to see if the full list of documents were received. Our timeline is, of course, we start with the February 15th deadline. You apply via SOLA for on-site. You use the online form for off-site. If you want to apply for both, let's say you want to be considered at the Apollo Theater, at Museum of the Grand Prairie, and at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, you use SOLA for our museum and you use the online form for the Apollo and Museum of the Grand Prairie. After the deadline, supervisors review and interview and choose those conversations they want to have. That's a good time to ask about schedule, start and end dates, accessibility, what's transportation like in the area, what are the expectations for performance and timing, And also it's a good time to ask about COVID policies. We all know that those are on moving sands and we want to prepare as much as we can. If you're offered the internship, that offer letter will come from us at the museum, and they will go out typically the last week of March. All interns, all applicants will know their results sometime in that last week of March. Ahead of that, we are almost never able to share results, or we don't have them before that last week, but you can reach out and we'll either tell you we're on track for the end of March, or you'll get it in a day or two, something like that. If you're selected for an on-site position, you will then work with my team to do background checks, turn in paperwork, get stipend information in. If you're selected for an off-site position, after you accept, I'll connect you directly with your supervisor, and that supervisor will work with you for onboarding. Again, look at the position descriptions to see some of what that looks like. For instance, Chicago History Museum requires a background check for onboarding. Stipends are a main benefit. We know that everybody needs to live, and that's really important to our program, but we do also build out other benefits to make this a well-rounded, substantive experience. In addition to the curated and carefully chosen projects, we have a formal mentor program where each intern is paired with a mentor that is not located at their organization to give an extra layer of confidentiality, freedom, openness to talk, although you can always talk to supervisors in an open way as well, but also to give another perspective on what the field looks like, what job paths look like, what different organizations look like. So we really want to expand your network during your time with us. There's also a full schedule of professional development seminars that we conduct virtually as a cohort. So you do get to know your fellow interns and create a network and a community between all of the interns in session at the time, and also making connections with our growing list of alumni. And finally, we pay and coordinate for all of our attendant interns to attend the Association of African American Museums annual conference, which also includes an annual membership. That's an excellent benefit. It's very unique to our program, and it's a wonderful, very supportive, very substantive conference to go to. So we're very excited to do that. It's a highlight for our interns every summer. I want to take this webinar also to help you put your best foot forward by giving some tips on what we're looking for and how you can set yourself ahead and prepare. Good thing to know is this application, our program is competitive. We do get a high volume of applications, but if we might get more than 100 applications, let's say for a position at the Apollo, probably only 10 to 20 of them are of a quality, have enough focus, that are worth more than a 2-minute review. So if you really take the time and think about your submission, you're not in such a huge pool. You've really narrowed it down quite a bit. Number one suggestion is to start early. This can be confusing if you're not familiar with these types of systems, or maybe your internet decides to crash out at the beginning of February. Really starting early will give you the best chance to find out if you have questions, to see if you're going to have issues, to think about how you want to apply and what you want to say, to have others review your materials for polish and clarity. It really will serve you better if you can get yourself to start early rather than waiting to the last minute. The next is thinking about the mission, not only of the organization, but of the project. We provide detailed position descriptions, including what type of candidate we think would be successful, what kind of soft skills are needed or would be beneficial. We get a lot of applicants, let's say, to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. An example would be, I've been following the museum since it's opened, and last summer my grandma went there and I would just do absolutely anything to work there. That doesn't really help us identify why you're interested in digitization. Our digitization interns are not working in the museum all the time, or almost any of the time, really. They're working in collections, offsite, doing research. We want to know, why are you interested in digitization? What about this position interests you? What about the goals of the program interest you? We love that you're excited about our museum, but that is not enough to make you stand apart or to help us understand if this is going to be the right program for you. Part of this application system is helping us understand, can we provide you what it is you're looking for? Think about ahead of time, why am I interested in this position? You probably don't have experience, but what brings you to the opportunity? I like to give an example of oral history. We have a lot of oral history opportunities with this program. They're very interesting. It's can be a unique and different perspective on how to approach history, how to preserve history, who are we talking to, who are we including in our records. But maybe you've never done anything with oral history before, but you can say, I took this history class last year and it started to include oral histories and never really considered that, and made me think, who gets to make those decisions? Who decides interview questions? Where are these things kept? How is the media preserved? All of those things that are sparking curiosity are great reasons to explain what's drawing you to the position, what you expect to learn, what is this going to do for you? Where do you plan to go with it? Which doesn't necessarily mean that you have to know you want to become a historian or you want to become a museum curator, if that's already your goal. But talking about why this position is right for you, is going to provide you skills you want and need in this moment, is what's going to help us understand you a little bit better. Think about what skills you don't have on your resume that you want to have by the end of the internship. And if you think about that as well, and then look at the position description and the learning outcomes, you can identify, which positions are going to be close enough match to what it is you're looking to gain or where you think you'll best grow. Read the position descriptions carefully. There is a lot of site-specific information this year, including vaccine requirements, housing details, the rural transportation, different types of schedules. So really look at those closely. Follow all of the instructions and prompts. So really take time in terms of reading the position descriptions carefully, but reading the process steps carefully as well. Don't want to have you disqualified from applying because of a small error or a process issue. Provide as much as you can cleanly formatted and error-free documents. Best way to do this is to start early, have your materials ready, and then find someone to take a look at them, to proofread them, to let you know if they understand or if they find grammatical errors. Give yourself the best time and use the supports that you have around you. I'd like to talk about references for a moment, because many times we think, okay, we're asking for a letter of recommendation. I've chosen the reference. I sent out the request. Now, whatever happens, happens. I have no control over it. Of course, we can't control everything about what our references submit, but there are some things you can do to help secure a strong letter of recommendation. Number one is to choose someone who knows you well. Sometimes in our industry and our locations, people will choose flashier, distant contacts because they think we'll be more impressed if their cousin's brother is a senator or is the director of a different Smithsonian unit. That doesn't really help us. What we want to hear from people who have worked with you or guided you in a professional setting, don't choose family members or close friends. Really think about, if you've had a volunteer supervisor or a professor from a class you excelled in, think about people who can really write about you substantively. That's much, 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 much more important than choosing someone who you think is impressive to us. Give them plenty of time. So if you're hearing this webinar, you've looked through our website, you looked at the position descriptions, you know that you're interested, you want to apply, think about in this next week who you think would be a good reference. And then after the holidays or, shortly When things have calmed down a little bit, or immediately when you're back in class for next semester, reach out to your reference early. Let them know what the program is and why you're interested. You can attach your draft of a resume. You can explain, why you're asking them. You might be able to say, I took your class 2 years ago, and that assignment you gave us really made me think more about how archives support traditional narratives or can upset traditional narratives. And that is, I saw this position, it made me think of that class. I'm hoping you could speak to that paper I wrote for you. So you can really guide them. If you think about it as writing an outline for them, it's going to make it easier for them to write a reference. Now, if they use that or not, that you definitely can't control, but I can guarantee if you do that amount of work ahead of time, they will write you a stronger letter of recommendation, because you're not coming to them 3 days or 2 days before the deadline making this request, and then they're confused about why they have to give you the letter, and then they're trying to contact us to confirm that, and then you've missed the deadline. So give them a lot of time, give them context, and also kind of remind them how they know you, and be grateful, be generous in your request with them. We now have frequently asked questions on our website, so please do take the time to review those. And then anything that you're not finding on the website that this webinar didn't cover for you, please email us. We are here to support you, to help you through this process. And anything you ask, my team, we don't select the interns at all. We're not part of that process. We're just going through them, deciding for eligibility, working on logistics and mechanics. So you don't have to be embarrassed or worried about the questions that you asked factoring in the decision. So don't hesitate and start early. I want to share some testimonials with you. I will read them out. The first is from Dania, who is a 2021 intern. The RFS internship provides the opportunity to grow in the cultural sector. As an intern, I had the pleasure of working with experts in a field that taught the inner workings of the field, professional development, and technical skills. You will be given a welcomed challenge to grow and create projects to take you to the next step in your career. Maurice from 2019 said, during this internship, I came in thinking I wouldn't be useful. Throughout the internship, my networking ability improved immensely, and the historical value I gained was amazing. I learned things I would never learn in school and developed professionally in a way I never had before. I came out of this internship driven, ready to call for change and to advocate for the importance of the history of our community. I gained confidence in my abilities and learned skills that I will apply to whatever jobs I do in the future. And finally, Brittany from 2018 said, my experience with this internship has been incredible. It has boosted my confidence and shown me that I do have what it takes to make it in this increasingly more competitive field. For the first time, I feel that if I and other people of color are welcome in the field, that we are going to do great things, and that means the world to me. Some of you asked about outcomes, like do these lead to jobs? What happens to our alumni? In the nonprofit sector, jobs are usually dictated by when positions become available. So if someone's leaving or additional funding came in. So it's rare that our interns will move directly from an internship into a position at their site. That's just not feasible for how things work. But we are starting to see a few hires at the host organization and alumni moving on to other fellowships. Some interns have gone on to graduate school in library sciences, anthropology, or public history. Some positions held by alumni include a community archivist, an assistant curator, a site manager at a local historical site, as well as humanities fellow, and of course the list continues to go on. Regardless of whether you're offered a position or not, or move into employment immediately, you would be building marketable skills and broadening the network of people ready to support and advocate for you. And I can't emphasize that enough. The people that you meet and connect with and impress through your time here are going to last with you beyond the immediate future. As long as you stay in contact, you're going to have strong connections to contract opportunities and job postings that come up. So if you've heard all of this and you're thinking, I'm not ready this summer, I don't have 12 full weeks, stay in touch. This is an annual program, it's summers only, but you can sign up for updates and application openings. So that is not a newsletter you select, if you're interested in internships or possibly fellowships, or perhaps you came here really thinking more about becoming a host, you can select your interest in that as well. This QR code will take you directly to that form, and we'll send announcements, an e-flyer when positions are announced and open up. And that's really the best way to stay in touch, to make sure that you hear about opportunities as they're available. So I want to say thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. You've already taken a great step in putting your best foot forward. I hope to see you apply in this year or next year or future years as you stay in touch with us and hopefully continue our interest in this field.